This is Michael Drive of Gale Force, and you're listening to Wildman and Steve.
You are about to listen to the intersection of faith, talk, and music. The Wildman and Steve show starts right now.
So, Steve, as you know, every episode I'm always trying to find a way to open it and to be more creative. And it's making me wonder, 50 years from now, people are going to dig this stuff up. And they're going to have a series of, how many episodes? 1,000, 10,000, 20,000 episodes of all the different creative ways that we opened up the Wildman and Steve show, right? So today, and by the way, ladies and gentlemen, that is who you're listening to if you didn't know that. You're listening to the Wildman and Steve show. This is our Metal Talk episode, which means we are going to be reviewing and playing some great music later on. In just a few minutes, actually, you're going to hear the first song. So you're not just going to hear us talk, but we like to talk. That's why we do this show. That's what we do. So I have an idea for you today, Steve, of how to open this show.
Take it away, man. And
this idea is going to kind of put you on the spot. I know that's a surprise. I know that.
As it always does.
So what I decided to do this time around, is I'm going to put all of it on you. You are going to find a way to open this show, but you're only going to be able to welcome everybody in one statement. And I'm going to give you 3 words to use in this statement. Now, I am not coming up with these 3 words, okay? I am right now on a website called the Random Word Generator.
Before you do this, may I only use these 3 words, or is it that I simply must incorporate these 3?
Incorporate into one statement, into one nice, welcoming statement. Okay?
We got it.
All right. Are you ready?
I am so ready.
Okay, you ready? I'm going to hit generate random words, and it's going to spit out 3 words. Okay? Here we go. Rugby, resort, heavy. Rugby, resort, heavy. Now, welcome our fans and our listeners with one statement using rugby, resort, and heavy. The floor is yours.
So we don't usually resort to sport metaphors, but this show is like a rugby match in that it is a heavy collision of faith and music. Welcome to Metal Talk with Wildman and Steve.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I would say that gets a 10. That gets an 11. Great job, sir. It's amazing the gifts and abilities that come out of this show, the hidden gifts and abilities, the impromptu stuff, I mean, can you believe there are people that plan things?
I've heard about these people.
Yeah, they plan the show, all that kind of stuff. That's
and I respect the people that do.
Right.
That just ain't us.
Yeah, and it never has been. And that's why, ladies and gentlemen, sometimes it clicks and it's great, and sometimes it bombs. And so that's just the risk. That's just the risk that you take. So, ladies and gentlemen, we always review music. So this one, we have a tremendous artist who has been around a very long time, but since the 60s.
Yes.
This guy is incredible. If you have not heard of Gypsy Carns yet, we want to encourage you to go to his website, gypsycarns.com, gypsycarns.com, and you will find some incredible music and an incredible story, which we will be touching on throughout the show. But to begin with, we are going to hit you with a rocker right now from Gypsy Carns. This is Color of Skin.
Metal Talk with Wildman and Steve.
People get caught up in what we see, looking through the eyes of humanity. We can't judge on the basis of a race. Religion, social media, or someone's face. God don't judge by the color of skin. It's a man's heart or the woman within. Whether you're love, whether you're sin. God don't judge by the color of skin. All but cool down. It don't matter if you're red, white, or brown. Put aside politics and daily news. Don't let television shape your views. Judge by the color of skin. It's a man's heart or the woman within. Whether you're love, whether you're sin. God don't judge by the color of skin. Every day we hear the cries of the youth, searching for a voice, voices of truth. About to unfold. Can't get away, young or old. God don't judge by the color of skin. It's a man's heart or the woman within. Whether you're love, whether you're sin. God don't judge by the color of skin. God don't judge by the color of skin. Yeah. We got to live together. It's about love.
Color of Skin by Gypsy Carns. That what I love about that, I mean, first of all, I love the message. He's very clear. He's in your face. Every song this guy does, it's not like it's subtle. It's not like he's holding back. He's telling you what he thinks. But man, the guitar riff at the very beginning of Color of Skin is what just sucked me right in. Oh,
that song again. You're right. And this is a great example of what we love, what we've said so many times on the show. And if you've heard it before, you know this already. And if you haven't, then get a hold of this idea. You need strong music to go with a strong lyric. And the message of that song is so powerful. It's scriptural, right? God does not look on the outward appearance. He looks at the heart. He makes that very clear, and he's got the music to back that up. And you were saying earlier that he's had a long career, and you go on that website, and it really is extraordinary that he's been making music, like you said, since the 60s, and he's got a really nice kind of timeline on his website where he kind of tracks his career all the way up through today. And yeah, he's got a blues rock sound. I mean, you and I talked before, there's a little AC/DC feel to some of his stuff. Yeah. And so you've got that marriage of form and content.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's been doing it for a long time, and he's continuing. You know, I mean, when I contacted him today and told him we were going to be reviewing his music on our show right away, he was like, you know, he said, "Wow, thank you. Here's my music." Like, he's still going. I get that attitude from him that he's not giving up anytime soon. So he has videos, he has everything. So it's really great. So Gypsy Carns, guys.
You know, and that's one of the things I love about musicians, or really any artist. And this goes to a novelist, this goes to a painter, this goes to the person who just enjoys woodworking in their garage, right? If you're into your craft, whatever that is, nothing's going to keep you from doing that. Mm-hmm. It's not about selling the product. Yeah. Some people might sell some stuff. That's great. If some success comes from that, even better. But at the end of the day, they're going to keep on creating because that's what they have to do. It's just part of who they are. Yeah. And so that's what I love about that creative spirit. And again, we've talked about this before, but when you're talking about human beings created in the image of a creator. Mm-hmm. Okay, so yes, God spoke into existence. That's great. But, you know, he didn't just speak a black and white cosmos into existence. Yeah. He spoke color. He spoke energy. He spoke emotion. He spoke speed. He spoke strength, and all of that. And that's in us. Yeah. That's in us. Yeah. We follow in our Father's footsteps. And then each one of us created differently. And so some of us will be geared toward music or something else, or maybe it's food. Maybe your gift is of creation is the way you create food for your family and friends. And it doesn't matter. It's that you've got to do it because that's who you are. And so I know I would just encourage, and we've had some of our musician friends who've done the same thing, you know, encouraging anybody who listens. If you've got that passion for something and God's placed that in you, run with it. Mm-hmm. Run with it. See what you can do with it to bring him glory.
Yep, absolutely. And ladies and gentlemen, everybody's on the edge of their seat right now because anyone who listens to our show regularly knows what's coming up next. It is time now for the tweet of the week.
So the tweet of the week comes to us from one of our former guests and a friend of ours, contemporary Christian musician, Brian Duncan.
Oh, yeah, good old Brian.
And you never know with Brian, with his tweets, is it going to be funny? Is it going to be serious? Is it music related? Is it faith related? You never know what you're going to get with a Brian Duncan tweet. But this one was absolutely straight. And it came out today. And he tweeted out, "For I know whom I have believed and am persuaded that he is able to keep that which I have committed unto him, .. Hashtag, it is in the Bible." And of course, he's quoting from, and anybody who would know this, it's 2 Timothy 1, verse 12, and it's from the King James, which some of us who grew up with King James, and we're not talking about the band here, so Rex Carroll, Jimmy Bennett, Michael Fegan, Benny Ramos, we love you guys. We're actually talking about the King James version of the Bible here. And some of us who grew up with that, you know, when we go on Bible Gateway and search for a verse, we still have to search for it in King James and then hit the different translation button to get it in whatever we want. And just as a point of reference here, I'm using a King James version that my fiance gave me just a few weeks after I'd asked my wife to marry me, and she gave me this a King James Bible.
I'm sorry, you asked your wife to marry you?
Well, it was my girlfriend then, and then she became my wife. But while she was still my girlfriend / fiance, she gave me this Bible that I'm holding.
Sorry, I just had to ask that. I'm sorry.
Of course you did.
I don't know if you have to do that often. You know, do you still ask your wife to marry you every now and then, or is that?
You know what? I'm just amazed she said yes. Every day, I'm just amazed she said yes. Yeah, but it was King James. So I'm going to read the whole verse out of there. Because he says, the beginning of verse 12, for the which cause I also suffer these things. Nevertheless, I am not ashamed, for I know whom I have believed, and am persuaded that he is able to keep that which I have committed. And then where Brian's tweet wasn't able to continue, unto him against that day. And I've loved that verse for years. And of course, there's such a wonderful hymn, which I'm sure you know well. I know whom I have believed and am persuaded. And what I love about that is I know whom I have believed. It's not I know what I have believed. It's not that I know a list of propositions. It's not that I know a logical syllogism. I know the person. I know the whom, the person, Jesus Christ. I know him. He's the one that I believe. And I have committed my life and everything about it. I've committed it unto him against that day, that final day when it comes the judgment. I've committed everything. I'd have put no hope in my resume. I've put no hope in the things that I've done. I put no hope in maybe the things I haven't done. Well, I didn't murder somebody, or I didn't do this, or I didn't do that. Maybe that'll be good enough to get me into heaven. I don't put my hope in any of that, but I put my hope in Jesus Christ, and I have committed it to him. Man, I'm getting chills right now. I just love that verse. And so for Brian to use social media here in 2021 to tweet that version, especially from the King James, which I think captures it so well, that just had to be our tweet of the week.
Yeah. Definitely a solid choice, good choice. And I think that what makes that message so strong is that it wasn't coming from somebody who, let's just say, I just found Christ, I just started walking with him, and a newborn babe or in Christ or something like that. We're talking about the Apostle Paul, and we're talking about what he faced. And this passage, in my mind, is very similar to a lot of his passages where it's like maybe defense isn't the best word, but I think it's like a defense of, he's basically saying to everybody, you don't get it, right?
Yeah. Yep.
You don't get it. Well, Paul, I mean, look at what's happened to you. You've been shipwrecked. You've been stoned. You've been beaten.
Yep.
And this is all God's fault because God's the one that called you into this mess. And everything you do gets worse. And you're drug out of cities. You're beaten in the prison. But yet it's like, no matter what, no circumstance, there was no circumstance that was going to keep Paul away from doing what God called him to do. And I think that, to me, that really is strong when we get into some of this idea of reciprocation, if I could use that term, the idea of, and I've had many people say this to me, and I understand. I can't say I completely understand, but I do understand where they're coming from. I had several over the years when I do a funeral as a pastor, and somebody will come up to me a lot of times and they'll say, here's this lady. She devoted her whole life to God. Yeah. Why did her last 30, 90 days, whatever on earth had to be so bad? And she had to suffer so much. And I know that's a hard thing to swallow. I understand that. But that is coming from the basis that we're reciprocating with God. That if I serve God, then he's going to make things good in my life. Right. And if that's the case, then Paul obviously was not doing a good job of serving God. Because if he was, everything would have been great. He would have been rich. He would have had whatever, never. But obviously that's not the case. And Christ is an important example of that as well. When you see what Christ went through, you see that, hey, this is not about, well, I give my life to God, so he's going to do this for me. No. I give my life to God, period. And it doesn't matter what happens.
Think about that other great hymn, right? Take my life.
Yes.
And let it be consecrated, Lord, to thee. Right? It's yours.
Yeah.
Do what you want with it.
Yeah.
Do what you want with it. And I know you've encountered people in your church and just your personal life and so forth, but people who have gone through through serious tragedy, very often health related, who have gone through it in a way that you're saying, I don't know how you're doing it with that attitude. I don't know how you're doing it with that peace. And those are just living testaments to the work of Jesus Christ in their lives. And while we may mourn and grieve their pain and their suffering, at the same time, there is something beautiful in those people as they show the rest of us. This is how you do it.
Yeah, and it's humbling when you're around someone like that. When you realize somebody that's close to God, and they're so close that they're depending upon Him 100%, and that's really where He wants all of us to be. And I have said this before a couple times, not to be argumentative or whatever, but just the idea of, I kind of challenge anybody to show me in Scripture where the opposite is true. Show me in Scripture where anywhere that justifies the idea that give your life to Christ and your physical circumstances are going to be beautiful. I see the opposite.
I mean, all through Scripture, Old Testament, New Testament, but just even taking the New Testament alone, look at the disciples. I mean, goodness.
Yeah.
Oh no, you're absolutely right.
Yeah,
you're absolutely right. I remember hearing a pastor say one time, people always say, I want to be right in the center of God's will. I want to be right in the center of God's will. And he's like, you realize that's the most dangerous place to be?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've actually kind of sort of maybe said it to Christ in this way that, is there any way that we could get to where I need to be without that cross issue? I mean, is there any way, I mean, you're telling me deny myself, take up my cross, and follow you. Is there any way we could kind of get around that?
So there's all the proofs of the existence of God, right? Philosophical proofs of the existence of God, and then apologetics, Christian apologetics will talk about how to defend the gospel. How do we know the Bible is true? How do we know it's trustworthy, and all these kinds of things. One of the biggest pieces of evidence that the Christian faith was not invented by man.
Yeah.
Can you think of a human being who would have invented a thing like this? one in which God suffers and dies and rises again, one in which God becomes one of us, one in which He calls His followers to take up their cross and follow Him. He says the Son of Man doesn't have any place to lay His head. He says you're going to follow along in that same path. Are you kidding me? There's not a human being alive that would have created a religion like that.
Yeah.
That's not man-made.
Yeah. And plus, looking at how persecution, as you know, historically is the greatest church growth movement there ever was. When the church is persecuted, it grows.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it shows the authenticity of the people and of the followers. And that's what people are looking for. And
that's why, the great early church father, Tertullian, famous for the line, the blood of martyrs is the seed of the church.
Yeah.
Right. And so, you're absolutely, you know what, if I created a religion, you know what it would look like?
Why don't we ask our listeners over a poll of that? What would it look like if Steve was to create a religion?
Yes, we should do that. I won't give the answer on this show then.
Yeah,
I know exactly. I know what it would look like. I know its structure. I can tell you exactly what it would look like.
Oh yeah. It would look just like the Wildman and Steve show.
Well, let's be honest. The sermons would come through the form of a podcast. The hymns would be all heavy metal.
right. Of course. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, we're going to go to another song, but before we do, I do need to mention something, especially because we know Brian is probably listening. Hopefully, we'll see if he listens. But I do need to go back to, you've probably heard, listeners and followers, you've probably heard him do the promos of him introducing our show for us. One of his promos that he did that has been published already is when he says, I am not responsible for anything Wildman and Steve say. but play my music though. So I don't know if he wants to claim that with this show or not, but I just wanted to put that out there.
There you go.
That's the disclaimer. But ladies and gentlemen, here is Trust Jesus Christ by Gypsy Carns.
Metal Talk with Wildman and Steve.
When we look back on our lives, we did wrong, yes, but we did right. Always searching, never still. We'll find happiness, yes, we will. Stand firm in your beliefs. Don't give up your dreams. Trust Jesus Christ. We've been lost, way off track, not knowing how to just get back. Stand firm in your beliefs. Don't give up your dreams. Trust Jesus Christ. Every day we witness for the Lord and His Word, testifying, sanctifying, praying He'll be heard. As we think back on our lives, we found happiness, how to survive. Trust in Jesus, He's the way. Read His words, live them every day. Stand firm in your beliefs. Don't give up your dreams. Don't you do it. Trust Jesus Christ. Trust Jesus Christ. Are you with me? Trust Jesus Christ.
And again, there it is. Gypsy Carns in your face, straight up, telling it like it is, and just very simple. Hey, here's the answer. Trust Jesus Christ, right? That's what you have to do.
You know, there's a song, it reminds me, especially that title, and is just blunt and in your face as that is. There's a song by Billy Joe Shaver. I don't know if you remember that artist, Billy Joe Shaver. He's got a song called You Just Can't Beat Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. You know, at the end of the day, just trust Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And the thing is, though, but here's the thing, though. I think some people do hear that as a bumper sticker, all right? They hear that as a platitude.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, you know, sometimes when there's a national tragedy, people will say, I'm tired of your thoughts and prayers. I don't want to hear about your thoughts and prayers, because I think sometimes that can come off just as a platitude. But for those who know him, again, back to Brian's tweet, those who could say, I know whom I have believed. If you know him, then you know he's trustworthy.
Yeah.
You know that he's loving, he's perfect, he's good, he's dangerous, but he is good. You know, like Lucy Pevensey said about Aslan in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. You know, he's dangerous, but he is good. And if you know him, you know that you can trust him.
Yep. Yeah. Very simple. And ladies, again, we'll encourage you to go to gypsycarns.com, because he tells his story there. and his bio, it's not just a platitude for Gypsy. I mean, when he had an experience, a crisis experience where he found God and his whole life was changed as a result. So when he sings this stuff, he's saying, hey, I've done this and I know that it works and I know this is the answer.
I'm going to tag off of that right now. And I love conversion stories. I really do. And it's just like the healing stories of Jesus in the Bible. He never heals the same way twice. And you listen to people's stories of how they've come to Jesus and their conversion stories, and every one of them is different because every person is different. And I love hearing and reading those stories. If you're listening to our podcast, shoot us a message. Let us know how you have come to know Jesus, how he has come to be the one in whom you have believed. And so if you want to shoot us a message out on Twitter at Wildman and Steve, shoot us an email, info@wildmanandsteve.com. We'd love to hear your stories and incorporate them into one of our podcasts. Perhaps we might even have a special episode sometime where we just share and talk about people's stories of how they came to Jesus.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, Wildman, one of the features on the show that, let's be honest, people are clamoring for, right? They're yearning for.
Wow.
They want to know, what's the fuzz about?
Hey, what's the fuzz all about?
All right. What's all the fuzz about today? This is going to be a quite interesting segment for what all the fuzz is about. So basically, this whole segment is about talking about the guitar, history of guitar that all of us rockers have come to know and love. Well, I found an interesting article. This was published actually about 1 year ago. And this is on spindiddy.com. And they posted the 13 most important guitar players in rock history. Now, of course, this is all opinion based. We all understand that, right?
Oh.
So there's always arguments all the time. With Eddie Van Halen passing away, people are like, "Is he the GOAT? Who's the greatest? Was it him?
Right.
Was it Hendrix? Was it Jimmy Page? Was it Yngwie? Joe Satriani?" All the names keep coming up, right? Mm. And Wildman has yet to make any of those lists, but I'm just going to put that out there, as a possibility to.
Well, you said this is the top 13. You probably came in at number 14.
Probably, yeah. But I had to turn them down. I don't want my name in lights like that, So.
You're a humble guy.
Yeah, right. So the 13 most important guitar players in rock history. What I would like to do with this today, and I am going somewhere. This is kind of like the preacher in me. Just hang on, I'm going somewhere here. Steve, my guess would be that you would not be able to guess who's number one, because let me explain why I say that, because it shocked me. I was not expecting this number one, even though he's very well known. I was not expecting. Now I'm giving you too many hints. Now you're going to blow me away and get it right. But anyway, I'm going to put you on the spot. If you were to guess at what this article is saying is the number one, and this is very interesting. The title is they're not saying the greatest. They're not saying the best. They're saying the most important guitarist in rock history. And then the subheading is the most influential guitarist.
Yeah, okay. That's an important distinction, and I get that. My mind was immediately thinking Tiny Tim, but then I remembered he played ukulele with Tiptoe Through the Tulips, so that wasn't actually guitar.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so most influential. Boy, I would. You could make the case for Eddie Van Halen, and I certainly get that. But I'm wondering, is it Les Paul?
That's a great guess. Great guess.
Because not only for the playing, but also for the development of the instrument itself.
Yeah, that is.
So in terms of importance, I'll make that my guess. Given that it's important,
that's a great guess.
Yeah. I would say Les Paul.
That's a great guess, but unfortunately, you are incorrect.
Okay.
In fact, he didn't even make the top 13.
Okay, what kind of a bogus list is this?
That's what I was trying to find the hardest thing, right? It was Chuck Berry was number 1. Now,
Really?
if you listen to their description, this is what I wanted us to talk about and discuss here on the show tonight, because this is very intriguing to me. Okay? We've all heard parts of Chuck Berry. We've all seen him. But listen to how they explain it. It is widely accepted that rock and roll evolved from rhythm and blues.
Yes.
While there were many musicians responsible for that evolution, from a guitar perspective, Chuck Berry was at the epicenter of the shift into a new genre.
Okay.
Berry was an excellent guitarist with tremendous energy in both his solos and rhythm work. His sound and style played a huge part in defining what rock and roll would become, not only in the 1950s, but for the decades into the future. Now, here's the part that I don't think I gave too much thought to. Maybe others have, but I didn't give too much thought to this next part. He was also a great physical showman, running about on stage and doing things with a guitar that nobody had ever done before, at least not in public. This was at the tail end of the big band era, when most musicians simply stood there on stage, nicely dressed and well-behaved. Chuck Berry showed guitar players it was okay to be excited about what they were doing, and it was even okay to be a little edgy.
That makes a solid case.
Yeah, it does.
That makes a solid case. And believe it or not, I was literally it would have been within the last 7 days. So within the last week, I was watching Chuck Berry's live performance of Johnny Be Good. Mm-hmm. And one of my favorite YouTube channels, I'm going to go and give a shout out here to this guy. His YouTube channel is Jamel _ AKA Jamal. And I love this guy. This guy is absolutely a brother from another mother. He is younger than we are, but has come to discover the really great music. He mostly focuses on the kind of 70s and 80s, does a lot of stuff in the 60s, even dips into the 50s. And so he does reaction videos. And I was watching his reaction video to where he listened to and saw Chuck Berry do Johnny Be Good. And, of course, he was just blown away by it. This guy really gets music, and you can just see it the way he reacts. And you watch that video of Chuck Berry doing Johnny Be Good. Absolutely. I love what that article said. It was the playing, but it was also the showmanship, the way he's holding the guitar, the way he brings the guitar out actually, perpendicular to his body, the way he's actually like jumping on 2 feet and kind of hopping with the guitar and doing stuff even before the duck walk thing. And so, yes, I like what they had to say about that. It makes sense.
What I find interesting about that is all of us, maybe not one or two. I mean, there might be somebody perfect listening. There might be somebody like Steve listening who's perfect and hasn't had any issues ever. But all of us have a tendency to make light of or make fun of something we don't quite understand. Now, the reason I say that is because the first time I saw Chuck Berry as a kid, I thought he, I was like, what is that? That's nuts, right? I saw on iTunes University, and I don't know if it's still there or not, there was a gentleman who, in a course, it was a course on cultural relativism, I believe it was. And he, iTunes University, they videotape parts of the courses, so you can listen to like book reports that college students give or whatever. Mm-hmm. So he was giving this presentation, and he was doing it on Striper. And what he did was he laid out for everybody the cultural connection that they made and how they made it, and just laid it out what their vision was, their purpose, and so forth. So he played a video of them. And I believe they were doing Makes Me Want to Sing was the video. They were doing it on a talk show. And you could hear students sitting there. And this was, I think, in the 90s, I think it was. You could hear students, adults, 18 to 20, chuckling, watching Stryper. And when he opened it up for questions, one girl even spoke up and she said, I'm trying to be culturally sensitive. And she laughed while she was saying it because she thought what she just saw was the most ridiculous thing she's ever seen. Right? So what I'm getting at is we have a tendency to do that, but we don't understand. There's a need for us to understand where things came from. Yes. And where the source is. So when somebody's enjoying an Eddie Van Halen or they're enjoying Joe Satriani or whoever else on stage, going back to the roots of where that came from was this, Chuck Berry. I mean,
well, that's why you listen to these guys, or you read their reviews in the music magazines, or you listen to their interviews on shows like ours. But where you listen to them talk about their influences. And I think look, you don't have to be a music geek and music nerd. You can just sit there and enjoy your music and have a good time. And that's perfectly fine. Right. But if you are somebody who really, really digs it deep, then you're going to listen to these folks who say, well, I was listening to so-and-so, so-and-so, and so-and-so. And I was getting my influences from this, that, and the other. And you're going to go check that stuff out yourself. And it might open you up to a whole new world.
Yeah. Now, what I also found interesting about this whole line of thought is for the Christians who might be listening right now, the whole idea of Christian originality is something that I find intriguing. Going back to, let's just say, John Wesley, for example. When John Wesley made the statement, and I'm paraphrasing, that, the people aren't coming to the building, so I'm going to go out in the fields and preach in the open air. Mm-hmm. That was unique at the time. And he had a lot of hecklers, according to history. There were people looking at him saying, this guy's nuts, right? Yeah. And I even see now, you can even Google, folks, there are several street preachers now in the U.S. and in the world. There's even a program of several ministries that are sending people out, and they go to the marketplace and they preach the gospel. Now, am I advocating necessarily for that? I know some have taken the extreme, some have done whatever, sure. But the idea of being original in what we do in order to touch the people, which is what Chuck Berry did. He touched a lot of lives because he came out and he was original. Oh. I would compare that same thing with what Stryper did in the 80s, because they came out and people were like, wait, I know what Christian is. I know what heavy metal is, but wait. You're a heavy metal band that's Christian. How do we put these two together? And so because of their step that they took, and we all know the story, Ken Metcalf and so forth came in and talked to them and explained the gospel to them. And because they did that, they touched so many lives simply because they just stepped out and did something unique, different, that was new. It makes me wonder today, what does God have in store for the church today that we aren't even thinking of right now?
That's a powerful question. And I would argue that the whole notion of doing something new in order to connect with and communicate better to anybody mm-hmm. is rooted right smack dab into the very identity of God. Yeah. What does he do? Unheard of.
Yeah.
God becomes enters into his own creation.
Yeah.
Becomes a human being. Oh, talk about unheard of, right? There was not another culture around that had any notion of deity in which this was even something that anybody would consider. And then likewise, the whole notion, new wine, new wineskins. You talk about Paul, I become all things to all people, so by all means I might save some. You talk about the 70 Jewish scholars in Alexandria, Egypt, who took the Hebrew Old Testament and translated it into Greek. Why? So that it would be accessible to the Greek-speaking. Greek was really the common language of the Mediterranean, making that available. Right. So there's always been that ultimately in God's own interaction with people. And so then we just see that playing out here. And again, doesn't necessarily mean you have to like it. Again, I might not like some new piece of art, but don't just write it off out of hand. You're exactly right.
Yeah. And I think also, too, as you mentioned that, I've always been puzzled. I mean, I know there's answers out there, especially now with the internet. There's an answer for every question anymore. You can't just ask a question without some attempt at an answer out there. But I've always wondered about, why did God choose? There's some speculation, but why did God choose to bring his son into the world in a way that was perceived to be extremely immoral? Through Mary, who was going to risk her life to be stoned and all that child out of wedlock, what that meant in the Jewish culture, so it's like it was never, I think that's still part of what you're saying. I think that God's like, hey, I mean, you've heard before people saying, don't try to put God in a box because he'll break it down. I mean, he shatters it. I mean, every time you can't. And then the disciples, what did they do? They kept trying to put Jesus in that box.
Right.
Jesus,
right.
Come on, you're not being the Messiah that we expected. And
right.
And he's still doing that with us today. But we have, in our humanness, we have that tendency to want to box him up again and say, this is the only way. And then he shatters it again.
Now, the flip side of that, as you well know, the flip side to that is to say that all bets are off about everything, right? Mm-hmm. And that there are no boundaries. There is no such thing as truth. Whatever is true for you is true for you, might be different from me, right? And no. We're not nobody's saying that. And certainly God isn't saying that. Mm-hmm. So there's a proper balance there in terms of what is the true, the good, and the beautiful. But again, also the new way of doing something. And that's where you've got to be very careful. I think as Christians, we got to be careful. I think as the body of Christ, we got to be careful in what are the essentials and what are the things that are honestly, they're negotiable, right? It's not so the deity of Christ, non-negotiable. That God actually came in the flesh, non-negotiable. That Jesus rose bodily from the grave and is the only way to salvation. Those are all non-negotiables. True. Yeah. Now, how you choose to communicate that? Well, you want to communicate that through polka. You want to communicate that through a Rubens painting. You want to communicate that through a cartoon version of the Bible. I remember our son, when he was young, had the Adventure Bible, which is a really great comic book style art. Man, that's all up for grabs. Right. So be creative. We're back to, again, created in the image of a creator God. Crazy, go nuts, man. Have fun with it. Go crazy. Use whatever God's given you. Go crazy. Yeah, it's true. I mean, there are fundamentals. There are things that, yes, this is. It doesn't mean the idea of no absolutes, because as you know, studying philosophy especially, I mean, somebody says there are no absolutes. There's only one absolute, and that's the fact that there's no absolutes. Like, right. That's a great way to protect what you're saying, because then you're covered no matter what, right? So, there are absolutes, but the tendency is that is to confine God into a, God would never do that. God would never do that. Well, just you know what? Just ask him. Just talk to him. Go to prayer, and especially if you're not sure what's going on or kind of what to do. Maybe you even got the blues a little bit. Just start praying, man. Yeah, and he'll be faithful. He'll be faithful. I mean, if you just say, Jesus, show me what this means, he will be faithful to do so. Yeah. He will do that. And just keep praying. Just pray, and pray those blues away. You're picking up what I'm laying down. Here is Praying Blues by Gypsy Carns. Metal Talk with Wildman and Steve.
You heard about Robert Johnson, right? King of the blues. He was a mediocre guitar player, went down to the crossroads, signed himself a record deal with the devil, and he got really, really good really quick. He got really, really famous really quick, and he got really, really dead really quick. A couple of years, and the devil called it in. Whoosh, he's out of there. So what we're saying is stick with the Lord. That's a place to be for the long run. This is all about the praying blues. have come and gone. Don't go down to the crossroads. Men have come and gone. Yeah, they say you meet the devil. Say you saw and then move on. You can't trust the devil. He will take your soul and run. You can't trust the devil. He will take your soul and run. But I asked the gypsy woman, she said, pray to the Holy One. Got down on my knees, I began to pray. I looked for the words, didn't know what to say, yeah. On my knees, yeah, I'm praying the blues. For the Lord to give me strength. Yeah, he knows I paid my dues. Bring it on down. Get down on your knees and pray to the Holy One.
All right, so we made it, Steve. Once again, made it through another episode. Not only did you make it, not only did I make it, but our listeners made it.
Our listeners made it.
If they're
Congratulations. We're proud of you.
Yes, those that are still listening, and I'm sure they are. Our solid listeners are still listening right now. There's no question. So I did want to close tonight with something interesting. You know, I know everybody's on their edge of the seat now. Now they're going to finally say something. Wait till the end of the show to say something interesting. Well, I don't know if this particular episode is going to be done on video. It may not, but we do record video and audio. The problem is we don't have the time to edit all the video. So we make sure all the audios are out. By the way, folks, anybody out there who just has a hobby of editing video, let us know at info@wildmanandsteve.com and we can put you to work. Yes, it'll be fun. Kind of like Tom Sawyer. You know, I'm having so much fun painting this fence. You know, if you want to have any fun out there editing video, just email us and you'll have a blast, right? But on video, I am wearing a shirt. This is Petra Wake Up Call Tour, 1994. And behind me here, I have an original Petra Beyond Belief 1990 water bottle with the tour dates on the back. This is all courtesy of Brent's Christian Rock and Metal.com, who sells used merchandise. Now, I did own this before, but of course, as you get older, you lose things. So he had one. I found, hey, that'd be great. So I got it. So this is the shirt that I used to wear back in the day. But what I wanted to talk about was that in one of these here, this is going to tell you who I am, who Wildman is. 1990, right here, they were at the fair, and I went to the fair. They did 2 shows at the fair. There was a 3:30 show and a 7:30 show. The 3:30, of course, was just like the mini show, just to get people warmed up. And the 7:30 was the big boom, you know, the whole concert. And in the grandstands, everything was open. So you didn't have to like wait until the show started. I got there at around 9 a.m. You know where I'm going with this, don't you? And I never left the grandstands.
Of course not.
Never. I watched all the roadies. I watched all the sound checks. I watched all of it. And people that knew me were like, well, you did something else though, right? I was like, nope. I was fine being there the whole time. But that just shows what some of us have some interests and others don't, because my thought is if a band's in town and I have the opportunity to watch the sound check, why in the world would you turn that down, right?
Absolutely.
Now, just last year, I went and saw Stryper, or no, I'm sorry, it's 2 years at this point, saw Stryper on their history tour, and I invited a friend of mine to go, and he's a little bit into music, but not too much, okay? So it was a first come, first serve, the whole deal. So I had it all planned out. He gets off work. We're going to run there as quickly as possible and get in line. So he just kind of moseys. And I'm like, you're not. Oh. And then he's like, well, let's stop over here. We got time. I'm like, no, we don't. No. Understand. We have no time. So it's amazing that passion, the passion. So I want to leave that idea out there right now. And so, Steve, putting you on the spot again, tell me about your passion when it comes to what I just explained.
You'll have to forgive me, although you should expect it. The word passion comes from a Latin word. The word passion comes from a Latin verb that means to suffer. And what you are passionate about is what you are willing to suffer for.
Yeah.
And so just like you were ready to, you'd be there at 9 o'clock. It didn't matter if you were standing all day. When back in 2016, when Stryper was on the 30th anniversary of the To Hell with the Devil album. And I was fortunate to see them in Indianapolis. My buddy Kelly Frank that we've had on the show was promoting and setting the thing up. And it was this event called Rocktoberfest, and there were 3 initial acts, and then there was White Cross, Petra, and Stryper. So it was like, the trifecta there. Yeah. So 6 bands all together. And I was on my feet for, I think it was, like 9 hours or something. Didn't go to the bathroom, never got a drink. By the end, I was getting dehydrated. I felt terrible. I had a splitting headache on the drive home. And it was absolutely worth it. Wouldn't have changed it for the world, baby, because I was willing. I was willing to suffer for what I loved. Yeah. And if I can take it from the fun, I can't help it. The passion of Christ.
Yes,
he was willing to suffer for what he loved.
Yep,
which was us.
Yeah,
listener, that's you too.
Yes, that is so true. And just that idea of suffering and passion going together, two sides of the same coin.
They are.
The same.
They are indeed.
Same thing. Yeah. And, I remember hearing before, and we'll close with this idea, but I remember hearing a long time ago, evangelists said this, bottom line, people just simply do what they want to do. That's what they do. Which means whoever is still listening out there is listening because they want to listen until the end of the show, or they haven't been able, or their volume control is broke. Or a friend is listening and they're trying to get it to turn it off, or their husband is blasting it and they don't want to hear it. Whatever it may be. We want to thank all of you for listening, and just want to mention quickly before we close tonight that the Wildman and Steve show is now partnering with New Release Today. So please check them out at newreleasetoday.com. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
We sure appreciate you, folks. Check all things out having to do with Wildman and Steve at wildmanandsteve.com. sarcasm.com.